Hello and welcome to my channel. Today this video is about the top 10 British cars between 1990 and the year 2010 that need to be added into Forza Horizon 4. Now of course, Horizon 4 is in the UK, it can be based in the UK, so British cars are very suitable for the game. And of course, my list is of course slightly different to yours. Your list is going to be what you agree with and what you would like to see, but I would like to know what you would like to see in the game. So please let me know down in the comments what your cars you would like to see in the game, what your wish list is, and if we bring up enough cars, I might make a part 2 to this video. So yes, these are cars between 1990 and 2010. Now to me, this was the best era for cars. The cars we produced, and even in general, cars that were produced in that time were the best. Most of the time they were supercars with massive engines and massive brake horsepower figures, where nowadays they become more SUVs with less brake horsepower, more for economy rather than performance, where this time it was more for performance. So this is where my favourite cars are. Smashing off the list is one of my top 5 favourite cars of all time, which I'd love to see in Horizon 4, especially that generally Turn 10 and Playground Games produce some absolutely amazing games with some fantastic car sounds. And I'd love to see this car in the game. Now this car was in Gran Turismo, but they removed it in Gran Turismo Sport for some reason. And I didn't really enjoy Gran Turismo as much as I've enjoyed Forza, so I'd love to see this car in Forza. This car I'm talking about is the 2007 Jaguar S-Type R. Wow. And the S-Type R is one of my favourite cars ever. It's just a performance saloon that were sort of really versed the German competition of Mercedes and BMW. But then again, you didn't actually pay a price for the speed. You still had lovely interior with cream and leather and wood dashes and lots of classical styles as well, which were luxurious. The car was very luxurious, and I've absolutely loved this car. Again though, I would love Forza to add the 2004 to 2008 version, as it looks better, it's got a better performance, it's slightly lighter as it's got an aluminium bonnet, and it's a bit more reliable in real life. But I prefer the looks of the later facelifted version. If you want to hear some performance figures, it's only got a small 4.2 litre V8, but it's got a humongous supercharger on it that screams out very loud, and it's a fantastic sounding car. And for a performance saloon, it produces 400 brake horsepower, which is exactly the same as the BMW M5 equivalent of the car. And this car will go up to 155 miles an hour, and unlimited, this car can get up to 181 miles an hour. Now, for a performance saloon, this is fantastic. Again, the 0 to 60 is 5.6 seconds, which at the time was pretty good. But I really would love to see the S-Type R. Please Turn 10, add this car to the game. I know there's a lot of you going, oh my god, it's an S-Type R, that thing looks ugly, it looks old, it looks rubbish. But there's a lot of people out there that love it, including myself, and if you know CarNerd16, who's been on my channel a few times before, he loves that car as well, so at least I'm not the only one. But yes, please Turn 10, add this to the game. The next car I'd like to see, again, this is another one of my top 10 favourite cars ever, the 2000 TVR Tuscan. Now, this car's fantastic. I hope you didn't hear that, my PC spaz out then. But the TVR Tuscan is one of my top 5 favourites. It's got to be my top 5 favourites, as it's very different in the way it looks, and there's lots of different technologies involved. Like the door handle, well, it doesn't even have a door handle. There's a button under the door mirror, so it's very mad. But I love that. The interiors as well are generally really nice. They've most of the time have cream interior. If it doesn't really matter. But I prefer the cream interiors. It's got lovely dashes, dashboards. The steering wheel is a bit mad. The dials are mad as well at times in TVRs. But the Tuscan was definitely one of the best looking cars, and the fact that it had a 4 litre straight 6 made it sound amazing as well. It was quite powerful for the day for a straight 6. It did 321 brake horsepower, bringing it up to 180 miles per hour, 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds. So of course that's blown my S-Type out of the water, but then it's a completely different car. Well, the Tuscans are more of a sports car, where the S-Type's a performance saloon. But the Tuscan, I do prefer the year 2000 or the 1999 one, as they did sort of later on tweak it a little bit, and they had a little boot spoiler on the back with some lights on it, I can't ruin the way it looks, where I prefer the older looks. And again, we don't need to worry about reliability in Forza because it's a game. So moving on, I'd like to see the 2004 Aston Martin Vanquish S. This car, like the TVR, was featured in a Forza in the past. It was in, I think it was in one of the Motorsport 4 or something like that. And the Aston Martin Vanquish, again, is one of the most best looking cars Aston has produced. Well, I say that, it was at the time, but now they've produced lots more good looking cars. But the Vanquish was still a very good looking car for its time. It was featured in James Bond as well. Well, I'm not surprised with its massive 6-litre V12, generally Aston Martin V12 engine, producing 572 brake horsepower, bringing the car up to 201 miles per hour, 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds. So yeah, it's not bad in performance either, really, to be honest. It's quite a heavy car though, but then again, it does have that fantastic Aston Martin noise that, it's fantastic noise that Aston's produce. It's got the same engine as the DB9, which I will mention about later. But the Vanquish S is definitely one of the best looking cars I've seen for, well, in that time, before the DB9 came out, because the DB9 was much better looking, I think. But yeah, the Vanquish was a very, very nice car. Next car I'd like to see is the 1993 Lister Storm. This thing looks fantastic. The rear end of it, if you've ever seen it, looks so good. I don't know how they've done it, but they've made it just look so good, even though it's made out of lots of boxes in terms of its shape. It's really, really good looking car. Lister is a partnership with Jaguar, which means that it was sort of made out of Jaguar parts in certain ways. Lots of it were Jaguar undercarriage, Jaguar materials, which means there's quite a lot of quality strength, let's say, quality strengths. But it hasn't got the same Jaguar engine though. It's got a massive 7-litre V12 producing 410 brake horsepower, bringing the car up to 208 miles per hour, 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds. Now this car's produced performance is really, really good for its time, especially the fact that it's got to be nearly 25 years old now. So and if you compare the performance to the newer cars, which you've seen in my previous videos, the performance is pretty much very similar, even though the car's like 25 years old. It was an absolutely groundbreaking car. As a race car, it made the company millions in racing, so it was a really good car. There wasn't many made though, that's a bit unfortunately. But then again, that's the point of Forza. You get to drive dreams, you get to drive really rare cars. This one has to be in Forza. Please turn 10, listen to me. Next car I'd like to see is the 2007 Bentley Arnage T. Now of course this is a bit of a different car out of the cars I've been talking about lately. We've been talking about supercars and lots of performance cars, where you associate a Bentley being something of a luxurious car for old people. Especially something that looks like this. But it really isn't. It's got a massive 6.8 litre V8. Now I thought that a 6.8 had been a V12 or a W12. But no, it's a V8, so that thing is huge. Huge engine. Producing 500 brake horsepower, bringing the car up to 179 miles per hour, 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds. Now, for a car that's that big and that luxurious, it's just a quite astonishing performance, I would have said. Really, really good performance. This car was in Driver San Francisco. You may have seen my test drive video of that in San Francisco. I love the sound that thing made, especially with that little turbo noise. That wasn't too intrusive, it was just sort of there, and you had a nice big grumbling V8 which sounded amazing. The next car I'd like to see is the 2007 Bristol Fighter T. This is an absolute performance car. Now this was an absolutely groundbreaking car. I keep saying groundbreaking lately, but it is very groundbreaking. It had the same engine that was stolen from the Dodge Viper, the 8-litre V10, but it's been pumped up by Bristol, and it now produces 1,012 brake horsepower. 1,012. That's more than a Bugatti Veyron. That's before the Bugatti Veyron even came out. Well, I think it was announced in 2009, and that's what it produces more than the Veyron from a V10, not a 16 cylinder. So yes, that's a very, very powerful car. Although it does have 1,000 brake horsepower, it only goes 225 miles an hour. I say only 225 miles an hour. That's blown most of the cars at the time out of the water, really. 225 miles an hour is faster than a Jaguar XJ15. It's faster, well, it's approaching the top speed of a McLaren F1. There's a lot of cars it's actually approaching in terms of its top speed. But of course it's not as fast as a Bugatti Veyron, which has 11 brake horsepower less, which is just astonishing. Again, the 0 to 60 is in 3.5 seconds, which again is really good. The Bristol Fighter is not much of a looker. It doesn't really sort of look like it's a performance car going 225 miles an hour, but it really is a very powerful car. Next car I'd like to see is another car that's on one of my top 5 favourite cars in the world, the 2004 Aston Martin DB9. This thing's one of the most beautiful cars Aston Martin's ever produced. I know I was originally saying that the Vanquish was, but the Vanquish is a good looking car, but the DB9 is amazing. Top Gear's hailed it as one of the most beautiful looking cars. And again, it's got the amazing 6 litre V12 which Aston Martin made, and it sounds beautiful. The Aston Martins sound fantastic, and with Forza and Turn 10 playground games, sounds they make with the cars, it should sound really good. The DB9 produces 477 brake horsepower, making it go up to 190 miles an hour top speed, and 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds, which again, not too bad, not much of a slouch. It's a bit of a luxurious DT cruiser rather than a supercar, so it doesn't really produce that much horsepower. It's not particularly a fast car, but because it is very luxurious, you've got beautiful cream interiors with wooden trim pieces and lovely dials and things like that that just look completely quintessentially British. I better hurry up, I'm wasting quite a lot of time here. I could have a certain amount of time before this video runs out of footage. The next car I'd like to see is the 2010 Ginetta F400. Now this car hasn't actually been featured in many games really. I remember seeing it in Test Drive Unlimited 2, but it didn't really feature that much. It was only just that Ginetta that wasn't really used because it wasn't a very good car in the game for some reason. The F400 was originally designed by Arnage. If you ever heard of that company, they produce supercars, and it was originally designed by Arnage, but they sort of dubbed it as a Ginetta instead. Ginetta sort of took it over and sold it in the UK as a Ginetta. I think they sold it elsewhere as a Ginetta as well, but yeah, they sort of took on the project and sold it as a Ginetta. The car had a 3 litre V6, produces 392 brake horsepower, 185 miles an hour, and 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds. Again, a very good performance car. It's not a supercar performance, but it is very powerful. Moving on, I'd like to see the 2005 Ascari KS1. Now again, this car was also featured in Test Drive Unlimited 2 like the F400. It has a BMW 4.9 litre V8 producing 520 brake horsepower, putting it to a top speed of 200 miles an hour and 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds. Again, a very good performance car. The Ascari actually is in the files. I don't know whether it's the KZR1 or whether it's the Ascari A10, but I decided the KZR1 is a balance. It's not really the hardcore A10, but it's not really the sort of soft KZ. It's the KZR1 or 1R, which is a more performance car. Very suitable. The last car on the list I'd like to talk about today is the 1995 Jaguar XJ15. Again, a car that probably not a lot of you have heard of, but it was a very powerful car at the time. It has Jaguar's 6 litre V12, which produces 550 brake horsepower. Now, fun fact is that this engine was originally going to be put in the Jaguar XJ220 before the engineers decided to put a V6 in it. Of course, the V12 probably was a bit too heavy, not as powerful as they was expecting it to be, or wanted it to be, so they put the V6 in the XJ220. But the XJ15 was pretty much sort of like the XJ220 prototype. Actually, it might have been after the XJ220. Actually, I think XJ220 was 2 years before this car. So this was sort of saying, oh, this is like the XJ220, how it could have been if it had a V12. They did have a concept of the XJ220 with a V12. It didn't look so nice, but the XJR15 with the V12 produced 450 brake horsepower, top speed of 191 miles an hour, and 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. Again, a very powerful car. It's pretty much the next generation XJ220, as I was trying to mention earlier, but I got myself a little bit confused. But yeah, there's a very powerful car. Not the best performance ever, because the XJ220 is faster with a smaller engine, but the XJR15 just looks really good. It's pretty much sort of the road-going version of the XJR9, effectively, which is a race car. a Le Mans racer, which again, if you've played Motorsport 7, it was in there as well. Right, I think I'll finish off the video here today. Thank you very much for watching this video, and again, comment your wish list down below, and hopefully we might make a part 2. So thank you again for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video. Bye.